In our previous video, we explored the paradoxical nature of divine manifestation, how God is both revealed and concealed at once, shaping the very condition of existence. Today we are diving deeper into this mystery by exploring how Rumi approaches this culmination of mystical experience, the annihilation of the self as the final stage in the realization of subjective unity with the divine. So in this video, we'll explore how this spiritual metamorphosis is portrayed in Rumi's thought, how the paradox of presence and absence, self and other, finally resolves in the mystical erasure of the I. If something in this video resonates with you, even quietly, you are warmly invited to support this space. Whether through membership, small donation, or becoming patron, your presence helps keep this channel alive and shared. No pressure to do that.
In the mystical framework of Rumi, the experience of wahdatul wujud, the unity of being, is steeped in an intense paradox. The divine beloved feels both infinitely distant and intimately close. The seeker, or lover, is caught between two powerful spiritual poles. One is the jealous command of the beloved that insists, "There is none but him." The other is the overwhelming longing to be absorbed so fully in the divine that the lover declares, "There is nothing beneath this skin but God." This dual movement generates a spiritual tension that cannot be resolved through reason or discourse alone. True resolution, Rumi suggests, comes only through the annihilation of the self, a mystical dissolution of the ego, and the collapse of the boundary between I and you. But this is not just a metaphorical dying. Rumi presents it as a cosmic and evolutionary process. The soul journeys through successive forms and levels of being, mineral, plant, animal, human, and beyond. Each stage requires a kind of death, a shedding of identity, in order to be reborn at a higher state. In one of his most evocative poems, Rumi describes this ontological ascent. "I died as a mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and became human. Why should I fear this death? When was I ever less through dying? Once more I shall die as a man, to rise with the angels, yet even that must pass. All that is not God must perish. When I've surrendered even my angelic soul, I shall become that which no mind can grasp. Let me not exist, for in non-existence the great truth resounds. To him we shall return." In this vision, non-existence is not a void to fear, but a sacred threshold, a portal to ultimate union with the one who transcends all form. The journey of the soul is not a flight from life, but an ever-deepening return to its origin, where the boundaries of selfhood dissolve in the radiance of the truth. When we recognize that the goal of wahdatul wujud is the annihilation of the self, it becomes clear that unity is not primarily an existential state, but an annihilatory one. That is why Rumi reinterprets the well-known phrase, "I am the truth," not as arrogance, but as the ultimate humility. To say, "I am the servant of al-Haq," still affirms two beings, the self and God. But to say, "I am the truth," is to erase the self entirely, affirming that only God exists. I am nothing, only He is. Therefore, the purpose of annihilation is not theoretical understanding, but an emotional and existential gnosis. It is not enough for the seeker to witness divine manifestations. The goal is to pierce through them and uncover the hidden essence behind all forms. The Sufi does not merely wish to see or speak of al-Haq. He longs to become lost in al-Haq, or more precisely, to be consumed by him.
The path to divine unity begins with the multiple and visible and ends with the singular and ineffable. True transformation can only occur if all opposites share the same essence, and the alchemical agent of this transformation is annihilation, which dissolves the many into the one.
Yet this path of annihilation is not entirely negational. Rather, it liberates the seeker from space, time, history, and identity, though never from the beloved. Through this loss of self, the Sufi gains the capacity to subsist in God. The evacuation of the ego also opens a space for divine perfection to take root within the soul, for only one who has a core can perceive the core. Only one with spirit can enjoy the spirit. In this way, non-being becomes a mode of receptivity, and annihilation becomes a profound spiritual accomplishment. Crucially, however, arriving at al-Haq does not mark the end of the journey. The beloved constantly reveals himself in new forms, and with each unveiling, the seeker discovers yet another layer, another core. Even when one reaches what seems to be the kernel of truth, it unfolds into thousands more. Thus, the path of truth is never finished. The true seeker is one who never ceases to circle al-Haq, tirelessly, endlessly, in love. When reading the poetry or prose of Rumi, it is difficult to determine whether his understanding of the unity of being refers more closely to ittihad, union, or hulul, indwelling, as both concepts involve the annihilation of the self. Traces of wahdatul wujud can be found in verses such as these. Happy the moment when we are seated in the palace, you and I, with two bodies and two figures, but one soul, you and I. The colors of the grove and the voices of birds will grant us immortality when we walk together in the garden, you and I. We shall show them the moon itself, you and I. No longer two individuals, we shall be mingled in ecstasy, joyful and free from foolish chatter, you and I. The brightly plumed birds of heaven will burn with envy when they see us laughing together, you and I. And here is the greatest wonder of all. You and I, sitting in this same corner, are at once both in Iraq and in Khorasan. You and I, broadly speaking, the unity of being in Rumi's thought aligns more closely with the path of ittihad, which begins with self-knowledge and leads to the knowledge of the divine other. At the core of this view lies the notion that the self functions as a mirror or astrolabe of al-Haq. Man is the astrolabe of God, but it takes an astronomer to understand the astrolabe. Whoever knows himself knows his Lord. Just as a silver astrolabe reflects the celestial spheres, so too is human existence a reflection of al-Haq. When God grants a person insight and vision, they begin to witness the unfolding of divine beauty in their inner astrolabe, moment by moment, gaze by gaze. This beauty is ceaseless and perpetual. Although the mystical path begins with knowledge of the self, Rumi warns that this knowledge should not become a destination. Once one has come to know the self, one must abandon it in order to reach the one and attain unity with him. He expresses this dialectic between knowing and fleeing the self in these words. Suppose you know the definitions of all substances and their products. Of what use is this to you? Know the true definition of yourself, that is essential. Then, once you know it, flee from it, that you may attain the one who cannot be defined, O sifter of dust. Similarly, in the Rubaiyat, Rumi writes, when I was preoccupied with myself, I found no worth in my soul, but when I stepped outside of it, I discovered its true nature. At the station of ittihad, no distinction remains between the human soul and the divine. When the soul has united with God, speaking of the soul means speaking of the self, and speaking of the self means speaking of the soul.
This profound union gives rise to an experience of total unity with all things, whether alike or opposed, material or spiritual, emotional or intellectual. Rumi captures this vision of radical unity in one of his most striking poems.
If there is a lover in this world, O Muslims, it is I. If there is a believer, an infidel, or a Christian hermit, it is I. The dregs of wine, the cupbearer, the minstrel, the harp and the melody, the beloved, the candle, the drink, and the joy of the drunken, it is I. The 72 sects and creeds of the world, none truly exist, for by God, all of them, it is I. Earth, air, water, and fire, even body and soul, it is I. Truth and falsehood, good and evil, ease and hardship, knowledge, asceticism, piety, faith, it is I. The fires of hell with all their flames, and paradise with its Eden and Houris, it is I. The earth and heavens and all their inhabitants, angels, jinn, men, all of them, it is I. In this regard, all moral judgments about human actions become meaningless in the state of the unity of being. For the person has dissolved into al-haq. Offenses are no longer offenses, crimes are no longer crimes, because he is absorbed in al-haq. According to Rumi, this being does not have space for two essences, nor for two separate judgments. He illustrates this with a story. A man knocks on the door of his beloved, and a voice from within asks, "Who is it?" He responds, "It is I." The voice then says, "This house has no room for both you and me," and the door remains shut. The lover retreats into the desert. A year later, he returns and knocks again. The same voice asks, "Who is it?" This time, the man replies, "It is you," and the door opens to him. Still, this unity of place and self does not prevent Rumi from acknowledging the persistence of diversity between the two essences, as he exclaims, "O God, O I, O you, my radiant pearl, we are different from one another. I am your destiny."
Rumi is well known for expressing his concept of the unity of being through analogy in its many forms: comparison, metaphor, allegory, parable, and anecdote.
These rhetorical strategies lend his concept a metaphorical and poetic dimension. To describe this unity as metaphorical means it is, in fact, a discursive unity rather than a literal existential one. It is a unity constructed and experienced through language, through logos in its linguistic sense. However, if we consider that God created the world through a word, that is, through language, then the world itself becomes a manifestation of being embedded in language. In this light, the claim that Rumi's unity of being is discursive is equivalent to saying it is existential. Realizing discursive unity, then, is no less intense than realizing existential unity. In this framework, the mirror or the astrolabe in which the Sufi perceives al-haq is none other than language itself. When the Sufi interprets the Quranic verse, "Wherever you turn, there is the face of God, he sees God in all things." This perception, however, is poetic and metaphorical, not sensory or rational. In this poetic encounter, the observer, the object observed, and the act of observation become one. Ultimately, it culminates in affirmations such as, "All I see is nothing but God," or "Only God sees God," or "Before anything else, I see only God."
This is what the Sufis mean when they say that they behold God through God himself. Thank you so much for watching. A heartfelt thank you to Sean Wang, my highest tier patron. Your unwavering support uplifts this channel in ways both seen and unseen. See you.